Hello everyone, and welcome back to this episode of The 80 Field, already episode 2 of this anime podcast powered by fullfrontal.moe. I'm Dimitri your host, co-founder and chief editor at fullfrontal.moe. And with me, I have our dear friend,
Matteo, so co-editor and co-host of this podcast, I guess. I'm very glad we reached episode 2 because, I don't know, like,
Lineage.
just starting the podcast was a big thing. So now we've reached the second episode. I hope it goes on forever, at least.
Well, at least forever. First of all, thanks to everyone who tuned in last week or who watched the episode when it finished airing live. We've received a lot of feedback about it, so we're trying to integrate it as soon as we can, so that each episode is better as we go. So, amongst other things, people have asked us that we react more to the chat, and indeed, we were scared last week. It's kind of frightening, especially since we're live. It's a bit intimidating, but we're gonna try our best to react to the message that are sent to us. So please make sure to write your thoughts or to react to what we're saying in the chat or ask questions. We're gonna try to answer to them.
Yeah, and Dimitri is the one who has the chat visible. So if we don't answer, it's all his fault. So please, I'm not to blame. It's all him.
All my fault. And also I know that some people have asked that we try also to integrate some images or video. So we're gonna try things out as it goes, and hopefully the quality goes only up from here. Anyway, so what's the topic for today?
I have no idea. So this time, we've done this kind of article already, but still it's a bit special because, it's like an interview, but it's not quite an interview, and I wasn't involved in it. So please, it was your thing, Dimitri, so please tell us everything about it.
So this week's article was a report about a panel that I held at Japan Expo Orléans last October. So Japan Expo Orléans, it's a smaller event organized by the same people who organized the Paris Japan Expo, like the biggest European anime convention. Well, anime and Japan culture and Japanese culture convention in Europe, and even one of the biggest in the world, like with Anime Expo, it's about the same size. And they do also two other conventions, one in Marseille in the south, which this year will be in about a month from now.
Yeah.
And a very small one in size in Orléans. But despite the size, what they're trying to do is always to have some Japanese guests. And so this last year, there were two guests. There was anime director Hiroshi Nagahama, who is known for directing Mushishi or Akunohana. And also he was accompanied with him. There was also the voice actress Uki Satake. So Uki Satake, she's the voice of Cutie in Space Dandy, and she's also playing the main character in Hiroshi Nagahama's next anime, which is the adaptation of Junji Ito's Uzumaki. And before being a voice actress, she was an idol and singer in the group 9, which did the openings and endings for Star Driver.
Yeah, that's possible, yeah. Very cool show, you should watch Star Driver.
Star Driver, incredible. And so they both came to Japan Expo Orléans, and because it's Fabrice Renaud, who also has been working with Full Frontal a few years ago, like for several interviews that we did, he was the translator or interpreter for it. And so because he already had introduced me to Mr. Nagahama when I was in Tokyo in 2019, he thought it'd be a good idea for me to host the panels that he was giving at Japan Expo Orléans. So I hosted two of the panels, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. Saturday's panel was only with Mr. Nagahama, so we focused that panel on his career. And then on Sunday, it was with Mr. Nagahama and Ms. Satake. Because I already had Mr. Nagahama's contact, and I decided that it would be nice if we could think about the topics beforehand, the topics that we would like to discuss. So it was indeed a bit like an interview.
Yeah, a bit shorter, and like the conditions are different because you have to think about the audience, for example, and all that stuff. But Nagahama himself, like on stage, he was like, but what we're talking about is probably way too deep for the audience at Japan Expo. But anyways, we went along with it.
Yeah,
I mean, you
and
went along with it.
I think people were still interested in what we had to say, and I think that such panels at AnimeCons, it's one of the best ways to get people interested in such topics, because like for articles, only people interested in it will find it. But at an AnimeCon, I don't know what to do. There's this panel. Well, let's go watch this panel,
obviously.
and they get an insight to, okay, so this is the work of an anime director. But I also try to not have it just be, so you're an anime director. What does it mean? Or what does occur? Like what's the day in the life? What's a day in the life of a character designer? Stuff like that. Because if you always ask this very basic, simple questions, which are needed, of course, because if you don't ask, if people never hear about it, they will never learn.
I mean, in interviews, like obviously we may ask some very deep questions, but sometimes it's the dumbest questions
that
which
bring the best
yield
answers.
the best answers. So it's a like double-edged sword. But anyways, it's true that a lot of like casual anime fans or like normal anime fans, I mean, they might know some names, but yeah, you need to go the extra step of like teaching them. I mean, I don't want to sound like arrogant or anything, but like, yeah, people are doing anime. Like, there are people, actual people working and drawing things with their actual hands and everything. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a good balance to reach, and I think that you have to raise the bar to some degree in such events.
And so, anyway, so since we published this article yesterday about these panels with Hiroshi Nagahama, we thought that it'd be a good opportunity to talk a bit more about his career, some adjacent topics to those that were discussed. So we're gonna get to it, but first of all, I'd like for us to thank the patrons that have supported us last week. So just a second, because... So we'd like to thank Rograk, Hatoko, Geraldo Lightwine, DHP, and L. Smith for subscribing. So if you go on our Ko-fi page, which will be in the description, we have introduced 2 membership tiers, which are also monthly membership tiers. And one of them, the Evangelion tier, so after these episodes, we record extra bits with extra information. So if you just want to listen to us a bit more, talk about some topics.
It should be particularly juicy this time.
Yeah, this time I think...
We can't tell you, but it will be interesting stuff.
I think that this time we'll have quite some interesting stuff to tell, so don't hesitate to subscribe. So the first extra episode is available to anyone who has ever done a donation to the website, because first of all, we want to thank all the people who have supported us until now. And this way also you can decide if you think it's worth it to go from like a single donation to a monthly subscription, have a small idea of, okay, what can I expect from these extra episodes. So anyway, thanks to all the patrons that gave us, that supported us for a donation last week and who got a membership status. And let's get back on track to the main topic. Yeah. And so before talking more in depth about Hiroshi Nagahama himself, you wanted to talk about one movie in particular, which is the movie which motivated Hiroshi Nagahama to work in anime. So as he said in the panel that we published, he said that he got a shock from watching Wicked City.
So that's fun, because he said that he saw it like as a kid or a young boy, and I get that he got a shock, because this is definitely not a movie for children. Because there's a lot of like sex and violence, and it's very dark and adult and everything. But it's typically one of those movies like which, I mean, Kawajiri especially, which got exported like in the West, and especially the US in the mid-late 80s, and gave this image of Japanese animation of gore and violence and everything, because one of the main things with Wicked City is that there's rape everywhere. So it's like a duo of like special agents who fight demons, and so it's a guy and a girl, and a woman, and she gets assaulted like every time, which hasn't aged well, to put it mildly. But that's the thing with Wicked City, and I guess it would be put in this category with like Urotsuki Doji and all that kind of stuff. And
But Urotsuki Doji is like really like
explicitly
H,
porn.
like it's especially
Wicked City isn't, but you know, it's an adaptation
very
from
hardcore.
from a pulp novel, because Madhouse did that a lot at the time as well. So yeah, it's. I forgot what I wanted to say, but the problem is I'm not particularly a Kawajiri fan, and rewatching, because I had seen Wicked City like some time ago, and rewatching it like confirmed that I'm not a Kawajiri fan.
It's not your type of work, but
yeah.
still, it still does have some interesting bits, right?
Yeah. So the first thing is, so it's his first like feature length, and it's interesting because he does a lot of things. So he's the director, but he's also the character designer, and if I remember correctly, the animation director. And so normally I don't have like feedback, but we should have a screenshot from the film, from the. So it's the characters, because it's his own character designs. And it's a novel adaptation, so really, it's not like he had a manga or anything to base his drawings on. And it's interesting because it's this kind of realistic style. And I mean, I'm not sure, because as I'm not a Kawajiri fan, like I haven't looked into it a lot. But I suppose there's some amekomi, so like American comics inspiration, because a lot of that realistic style in that era would come, I mean, directly or indirectly from that.
Especially like the way he uses the shadows, right? Like it's very heavy on the shadows, which makes think of American comics.
Yeah, as well. Yeah, because one of the other important things in Wicked City, it's so the use of colors. Because you know, Madhouse, like 80s Madhouse, all the directors were like crazy good at using colors, and Wicked City is like very unsubtle about this, where it's like always these two colors, like red and blue
every time.
and
as we can see in the image that's being shown.
And in the image that's being shown, so in blue is like the guy, so the human character, and in red it's like his partner, who's a woman and a demon. So like you have both gender and demon human in those like color things. And so it's and like
this
for example,
dichotomy basically, like two extremes, both in color
and like the final scene, I mean, which lasts like the final 5-10 minutes, it's almost all in blue. Like the backgrounds and the characters are painted in blue. So I'm like wondering, maybe they had like too much blue paint at Madhouse or anything, and they just wanted to get rid of it. I don't know, but that's the thing, and it made me think about like, you know, these Madhouse directors. Because when you think like this era of Madhouse, like 70s, 80s, you know, you have these three big names, Dezaki, Rintaro, and Kawajiri. And all three have like this kind of specific use of color and lighting and photography and everything. And watching Wicked City got me thinking, plus another thing, which is that we saw director Rintaro
last week. I wanted to ask if you wanted to comment on that.
So please, maybe you can introduce what Rintaro was doing here in the first place.
Sure. So last week, right after we recorded the live, we sprinted out of the studio to go watch. On Friday evening, so the day before the live, we went to see a showing of Kamui no Ken, presented by Rintaro himself. And the MC was our friend Bruno, who is a big fan of Kawajiri.
Who's going to kill me if he listens to this,
right. I don't know if he's watching right now. He's probably going to tune in later or watch it after. But he's going to... next time he sees Matteo, I think he's going to strangle him, something like that, for saying that he doesn't like Kawajiri. But what was interesting is that Bruno, because as this Kawajiri fan, he asked he asked questions related really to the Madhouse days and the relationship between Rintaro and Kawajiri. So Rintaro's answer was that they saw it themselves as rivals, but on the same foot, like they have a lot of respect for each other's work. But he has very interesting questions. I think.
And one of the interesting things, like when asked about Kawajiri and all the Madhouse guys, Rintaro's answer was basically, we were both equal and rivals, but basically we all like movies a lot. And he gave examples which I found interesting. He said he didn't give names, but he said like some guy would like French films and some guy would like Italian films and everything. And watching Wicked City, I think it's obvious. I mean, Kawajiri would have at least, I think, two inspirations, which is film noir, so mostly American films. But I think Rintaro shares that. And then when Rintaro said Italian films, it clicked in my head, and I was like, yeah, Kawajiri must be a guy who loves giallo, so Italian genre horror films. I don't think that Kawajiri would be a fan of like neorealism or anything, but I think like those genre films, I suppose he's aware of it, and like watching like the use of colors in Wicked City, like you can see that in these like 70s Italian films, and also the fact that it's horror, right?
True. And Italian cinema that like in the 60s, 70s had a lot of like a big horror scene.
Yeah, and so there was that, and the other thing was so related to like Dezaki, Rintaro, and Kawajiri, and this is a question I often ask myself, which is, so yeah, they're kind of similar, but they're different. So how are they different? And thinking about it, I guess you can formulate it like this: like Dezaki cares about like drama and the characters. Like Dezaki will exaggerate every effect possible, but like to make the viewer feel the drama as intensely as possible. Like the viewer has to be like in the character's shoes, and so everything is exaggerated. Rintaro, and I think maybe you noticed it in Kamui no Ken, I think Rintaro just experiments for the sake of experimenting. Like he just wants to create beautiful images, and so there's a tendency towards abstraction in Rintaro's film.
And also he seems like he's very influenced by cinema. I feel that it's felt in the way he builds a frame, but more like his influences, or you can clearly see it's more French Nouvelle Vague, and also some Japanese directors. Like you can really see that the cinematic influence is very different between them.
And then when you get to Kawajiri, I guess that Kawajiri is more about like the mood, so creating a certain atmosphere, and so that's why his movies tend to be slow and slower than, because Dezaki and Rintaro's stuff goes fast. Like it never stops. It's always multiple climaxes, and I mean Rintaro's movies are always way too long, but at the same time
way too fast.
So that's why a lot of people say, oh, the pacing,
the pacing's so bad.
I think objectively it's true, right? But it's not what.
But what he does
about.
with it is so interesting. Like so when the Kamui no Ken finished, the first thing I did was like turn back towards you and say, I understand why American people don't like this movie. But they're wrong. It's an awesome movie.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
But I get why a lot of people, especially people accustomed to American storytelling and American cinema and expectations, such as like Hollywood movies and such, would get lost by watching a movie like that.
Whereas you look at Wicked City or any Kawajiri film, I mean, at least from that era, and it's a much more conventional type of storytelling. It's much... Maybe because at the time Kawajiri had less experience as a director as well. But I think that, and out of the three, and I'm not saying this to say that he's bad, because, I mean, I don't like his style, and I'm not into the same things as Kawajiri, but he's still good. But I still think that out of the three, like Dezaki, Rintaro, and Kawajiri is the less experimental one. But because he's like working in other things, like he's not trying to make the most experimental, the most awesome images every time. So it's quite a different approach. So yeah, that was the Wicked City thing.
Okay. And so, as said, so it's the movie that inspired Hiroshi Nagahama to join the anime industry, and
Madhouse
in particular. And then they had the opportunity to work together on the cockpit, right, where Hiroshi Nagahama was in charge of multiple designs on the segment directed by Kawajiri.
Because basically the cockpit is three. I mean, it's a sort of like anthology or omnibus.
An omnibus.
So adapted from stories by Matsumoto Reiji.
Exactly, Battleship.
And
I mean, it's a war stories anthology by Matsumoto
and I don't
Reiji.
remember who are the other directors because I didn't research this and I'm dumb. But Kawajiri directed one of the three, which I have very faint memories, but I think is pretty slow as well. And
true.
As he said in the panel, Nagahama did mostly the mecha design. I mean, the planes and weapons and everything. So technical stuff.
And then, if you read the article, he also talks about the design, like Hiroshi Nagahama talks about the designs that he did for Utena, which was a bit kind of the same work he did on the cockpit, like mechanical design or props design. And so he talks about how Mr. Ikuhara gave him a lot of insight on how to think about such designs. And so one of the topics we're going to talk about is how incredibly ambitious Hiroshi Nagahama is. And thinking back on it, I think that he's one of the most incredible directors there are today. He takes quite some time to produce the stuff he produces, but he is always innovating and experimenting when doing a new work. Before we start talking about how Mushishi is such an amazing work with such a lot of attention to detail put into it, we have Oscar who left a few messages in the chat, and who was asking if Nagahama is directing the Uzumaki anime, and yes, so that was announced 4 years ago, September 2019, when the Uzumaki anime adaptation was announced. So his name was announced right away that he was the director of the show.
Yeah, and since we're going like kind of chronologically this time, we'll talk a bit about Uzumaki, but like at the very end of the live.
Exactly. Like if you stay tuned in, or if you watch the podcast afterwards, it's gonna be one of the topics that we're gonna talk about. We're gonna try to say
what we can.
As much as we can about it. But it's going to be at the end. But we do have quite some comments to do about it. But yeah, so his directorial debut, his Kantoku debut, is on Mushishi. Well,
and yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about Jube-chan first.
But actually, the small
as
anecdote.
He said, in the panel.
One thing I was wondering when I prepared the panel with him is that, so before Mushishi, he is credited as chief director on Jube-chan. And sometimes the chief director credit isn't the same work, like you're not doing the same work as a director like Kantoku. So there's often
and even like, there's in Japanese that chief director and so Kantoku.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have one in transcribed English and one in full Japanese,
exactly.
and you don't always know.
In this case, it's really like chief director, so in katakana. And oftentimes the responsibilities between Kantoku and chief director are not the same. Like there's really a distinction between them. So I was wondering if he had like what was the difference? Why wasn't he credited as Kantoku on Jube-chan too? And so as he said in the panel, I don't know if he ever talked about it before, but he said, well, actually, in this case, there wasn't any difference. Actually, I was supposed to be Kantoku, but because I have promised that my Kantoku debut would be on Mushishi, I couldn't be credited as Kantoku on Jube-chan. Yeah. But I practically did everything the same as a Kantoku would do.
Regular Kantoku, right.
So I thought that was quite a fun story.
It's the fun stories from the industry, and the lesson, which is never trust credits.
Yeah. I mean, well, trust them, but also don't trust them too much.
This is going to be the thing we release next week, so we'll talk about it in more depth next week. But like, next week's interview is peak don't trust the credits.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Anyways, we said, if the chat has nothing more to say.
For now, there's Sakuga Ari. Oh, Sakuga Ari is saying hey.
Hello.
Hey, Quentin.
So, we can move on to Mushishi. And, I'm just talking about myself in those podcasts, but last time
you're too full of yourself, Matteo.
Yeah, I am. But last time I was saying like, these podcasts we're doing, not from next week, but like progressively, like we're doing my whole like anime fan, my life as an anime fan, because we talked about Araki and which are some of the early anime I watched, especially Death Note. Like it was one of my first anime, and there's the step when I watch Evangelion and I become like
the anime elitist.
An anime elitist.
The anime snob.
And so
you're not Greek enough to be the anime snob.
No. And so what do I watch as an anime elitist? I watch the intellectual stuff. And what is intellectual? It's Mushishi and Akunohana. And Akunohana, and so, Mushishi was like one of my favorite anime for years. And I had kind of forgotten about it. But I rewatched a few episodes like for this podcast, and I was like, I can tell why it was one of my favorite anime.
But so for me, I don't think it had that much of an impact when I first watched it, and when I rewatched some episodes to prepare for the podcast today, enjoyed it 1,000 times more. Now that that I know a bit more about anime, rewatching it, I was thinking, it's so good.
It's so incredibly good.
Like,
And
everything about it, be it like the vibes from it, the way, like all the editing, the cuts, the timing of each scene, which create this like incredible eerie vibe. And it's perfect.
And last time I complained about Freerun, and I said I want Freerun. I mean, it's both slice of life and action, magical series and whatever. And I said I don't like it when Freerun has a plot. And now I would reformulate it, and it would be saying I wish that Freerun was more like Mushishi, because in a way, when Freerun at its best hits, that same spot, I think. But unlike Mushishi, it has a plot which kind of pushes in, and so every show should be Mushishi.
And well, so I watched a few episodes here and there, and especially the first episode. And so the first episode has Umakoshi as the animation director. So obviously I'm a huge Umakoshi fan. I think we've decided to express our love for Umakoshi in this set. From the get-go.
Maybe you can see it.
So maybe on the wide charts, maybe people could see the drawings that Mr. Umakoshi did for us. Yeah. Oh, did we already say that we interviewed him?
Well, you just did.
There's also some Ojamaja Doremi here and there, like the anime style Umakoshi gang. Like we love, I especially love Mr. Umakoshi. I think that he's one of the best character designer there is, and his work as an animator is out of this world. And in episode one,
but before talking about the animation, maybe.
Well,
go for it.
If I can, just
no, you
finish
can't.
about
No, you can't.
Umakoshi.
Shut up.
Like episode 1 has so much of these funny ginkgo faces.
Yeah.
It's so like very smug too.
Yeah. And you just give him pointy ears, and it's Freerun.
It's Freerun.
So Ginkgo is my homosexual autistic elf boyfriend. I mean, he's so cool.
Mushidayo.
He's so cool.
But
I love him.
Yeah, he's awesome, and the whole like I said, and what's the best about Mushishi is just the vibes.
Yeah, the vibes.
Which, amongst others, are created by...
Yeah, the background art. Let's talk about the background art.
Cool transitions.
Yeah, we're so good at this. I'm sure you absolutely can't tell this is our second podcast. Anyways, so one of the big things about Mushishi is that it always takes place like in the woods or in the mountains and everything, and nature obviously is like this very important theme and so presence in the show. So the screenshot you should be seeing is like from Zokusho, so the second season. I think it's interesting because you have this reflection of the character in the water and everything, so it looks really cool. And I remember back in the day, people used to say that Zokusho looked less good than the first season. And you can see some changes, but I would say, I mean, in terms of art direction, in terms of background art, I think there's a different orientation.
Because it's clearly different from season 1, yes.
Zokusho's
it's more vibrant.
Yeah, and look more detailed, look more realistic. Yeah. Whereas in the first season, you can see this sort of like hesitation between more I want to say like
abstract or...
yeah, but more like traditional Japanese painting or Chinese painting when you have a lot of clouds and empty spaces and more realistic stuff, so Western maybe if you want, whereas Zokusho really goes into the detailed realistic thing, which is different but works as far as I'm concerned. And also, as for the differences, I noted that the designs were slightly updated, and notably, like the line work is much. The outlines of the characters are much thicker, so it gives a very different impression because the compositing has to adapt and everything. But yeah, I mean, because people are just walking in those backgrounds all the time, and so seeing them a lot and them being beautiful as is.
Quentin Sakugari is commenting so many monochromatics.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, because one of the interesting things in Mushishi's credits is that, you have the credits, and most oftentimes like the enshutsu, the guys who does the storyboard, and the animation director are credited like first. And in Mushishi you have those three, but you have also like the color designer, because you have like 2 or 3 color designers which switch from episode to episode. And yeah, because basically every episode has like 2 or 3 colors or tints or dominant colors every episode, which complement like the theme of the episode. For example, if there's an episode about rain, it will be like gray. If it's the forest, it will be green, and these things. And obviously, so the concrete setting or theme of the episode, but also like the more abstract ideas, like I don't know, melancholy or sadness or everything. So the color design and the way everything works together is like so good. Yeah, it's really impressive. And related to that, maybe like the next thing we wanted to talk about regarding Mushishi was also like in terms of color design and background art, but also like the photography.
Yeah.
Maybe. So we're going
So
to
we're
be
actually not an anime
switching.
podcast. We're photography,
Yeah.
compositing podcast.
Yeah,
right?
compositing podcast. This is much better.
Every week you're compositing, like
Yeah.
talk about anime.
And it joins. I mean, it's related to some of the things we were saying with Araki and about Monster, especially like the inside the scenes in inside rooms or inside buildings. And it's a bit similar to like what we said about like Nakamura's episodes of Monster, and especially in Mushishi, like this attention to like natural light, to reproducing natural light. And so in the screenshot you should be seeing, like you have the light coming from outside, and it's very clear like the areas more in the shadows, more in the light and everything, and the layout is because basically it's Mushishi is like people talking in the woods or whatever. And people talking inside houses.
Exactly. A lot of talking.
Yeah, like Monster, just people talking. And so when they're inside, there's always like this big focus on like, the perspective, the camera, the layout and everything. And the lighting obviously plays a huge part. So that's the inside scene, but also the scenes taking place like outside. And one of the things that impressed me most is like the scenes at night. Because basically night is very, very, very dark.
Yeah.
And it's not this.
But it's difficult to show darkness, right?
Yeah, and it's not like Hathaway's Flash or this kind of thing where it's dimmed.
Oh yeah.
So that you don't see it. It's like you basically don't see anything, and you do have light.
You have a source of light.
Yeah, you have light,
which focuses also.
And
where you watch.
And the light is very, very clear, very, very sharp, and the dark is very, very dark. And so you have this very strong contrast, which natural lighting, natural stuff. And so it's like this overall philosophy of the show, and you can see how everything is tied together and works together. And so in like 5 minutes we're going to talk about like more the storyboarding, and we have actual storyboards, and you can see it like in the storyboards themselves, but we'll talk about that a bit later. So yeah, there's that. And there's this other thing. So I've been talking about like more like realism and natural lighting and all that stuff, but also you have like more abstract or more expressionistic like techniques. When oftentimes when you have like a dramatic moment or a character realizing something, or when you get into these more like abstract moments with the mushi, you have like the background becoming either blank or white, but with a tint of like the main color of the episode.
So some textures, right?
Yeah. So I think like in the screenshot you should be seeing like I think it's a bit of violet in the back. I mean it's white but with some purple, basically, because the main color of this episode is purple. So you always have like
this
these
callback
things.
to the main color.
Yeah. So it's impressive. And another thing I wanted to talk about is like the sound design, because it's very quiet. It's very very, and because the music plays a very important part. It's very quiet, but when it's there, you notice it, because there's very little like background sound effects.
Yeah.
I mean, you do have like birds chirping and whatever, but
very, very little. But it contributes to this whole atmosphere of the show.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to talk about it relating to the animation, but also how slow it is.
Yeah.
And the actors speak very slowly. Except Ginko, who like speaks in like these very brief moments. Like he says something
Yeah.
very fast, and then he breaks off, and then again he speaks like, and so I mean,
But because it's just like these very short instances
Yeah, yeah,
between like calmness and stillness, like
but yeah, and it works out with the overall vibe and the overall
Exactly.
themes, and so everything like is joined together, and I'm amazed by like the single intent which you can see in every single dimension of the show, which is really
Well,
amazing.
I think that director Nagahama. So that's one of the topics we discussed during the panel, right? Which people can read on fullfrontal.moe. It's that for him, trying to adapt a work like Mushishi, it's really about understanding like the core, all the core things about the original work, right? It's to understand, okay, what's the atmosphere, what's the vibe it needs to give off, like. It's really about understanding the work to know, okay, how can I extract it? And it's not just about copying the panels, right? It's really about thinking, okay, this is what the original author had in mind when doing the manga's frame, the manga's panel. How can I translate this in the anime, right? And so, for example, one of the examples that we had on stage, and I think that I did post in the article, the little storyboard.
So maybe we can show some of it, which
it's not the same. The storyboard we have today is not the same.
Okay,
the same one. But it's about this story. So one of the storyboards that he had. So in the column, which usually you put the character's dialogue in it, he drew a little map of the room with where the characters were and where the cameras should be placed, and so that the animators and people working on it knew how they should position themselves, and conform to where the characters are originally. So you can deviate from how it was presented in manga, but he still wants to stay faithful to. If somebody compares the panel from the manga to the scene, they're still placed in the exact same places. I don't show it from the same angles, but it's still the same scene, which is an incredible amount of effort to stay faithful to the original work.
It's like a big brain moment where it doesn't look the same, but actually it's the same. If you look at the content, you're like, wow.
And as he said, I think that he was. Good, and he was so skillful at reproducing the atmosphere, vibe, and understanding the original work that even when he added original scenes, even hardcore fans of the manga didn't notice it because it felt so natural, because he really was able to understand the essence of the work and translate and incorporate his own intentions in it, right?
And I mean, this is completely different, but it makes me think about what I think is one of the best manga adaptations ever, which is Maison Ikoku, which is the same vibe, which is it's very faithful to the manga, but it uses like these tools which are unique to animation to portray like the same vibe or the same atmosphere. And especially in Maison Ikoku, it's all about like the daily life of this town, and you have all these like shots of the sunset or everything, or people like just walking by or shopping or everything. So you've got this slice of life dimension, which of course is in the manga, but you don't have as many like shots of the town in the manga. But in the anime, you have tons, which, is once again like taking this thing which is in the manga and like using the tool specific to animation to like magnify it. And Mushishi does something similar in a lot of ways. It's incredible. And yeah, maybe we can, or is there something in the chat?
No, for now,
okay.
Just...
if we're saying bullshit, please tell us.
No, they're saying that it's an excellent analysis. So.
Yeah, they're saying it's bullshit, and he doesn't want to tell me. But we have something special to show.
Well, special.
Right?
I mean, it's the storyboard, right?
Yeah, the storyboard. So first we have.
First we have a storyboard by Hiroshi Nagahama himself. So a storyboard of episode 1 of the original series, right? And so it's all drawn by Nagahama himself, because Nagahama is a very skilled drawer, right?
You talked about like designs, like him doing designs. It's absolutely crazy that how well he draws. Like, I mean, he did like sketches for the characters as well.
Yeah, so
And-
which are in the article.
Yeah.
If you go read the article that we published yesterday, I did include. So I mean, Mr. Umakoshi's design and Mushishi are
Yeah,
incredible.
they're incredible, and
He's
his illustrations are incredible. But Nagahama's
Nagahama's
drawings,
Ginko,
it's so good as well.
he's so cool.
Yeah.
And very different.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
so
yeah.
there are.
I mean, it's more like a rough
Yeah,
sketch of the
it's
design,
a rough
right?
sketch.
But it's-
Rough designs of Ginko. From
Yeah.
pre-production of the
But
show.
like, you know, as the Japanese would say, like it works as a picture.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's already
Well, I mean-
an incredible drawing.
I want to see a Mushishi adaptation with Nagahama's designs now.
Yeah,
Even though I love Umakoshi, I think that it would work so well too.
yeah.
He's so Mr. Nagahama is so skilled, and so he redraw so. He draws all the storyboard by himself, and he's a very skillful drawer. The storyboards are very beautiful. Those ones that we have shown are available on Sakuga Boru. If you look for Hiroshi Nagahama, there aren't a lot of hits because there are a few scenes he animated. But since he did only little animation and then stepped up to be,
but considering
more
how
designer.
well he draws, and we're going to discuss it further, but also how closely he controls everything, I would suppose that like his checks, like
Oh, yeah.
either Edshutsu check or Kantoku check, must be. I mean, maybe he's very nice about it, you know, but. I wouldn't be surprised if he like redraws or does a lot of very close indications to the animators. Yeah.
I can confirm that he does indeed correct a lot. So
Yeah.
you can on shows he directs, and especially on episodes he directs, you can expect that all. Like, of course, if he has like awesome scenes, he doesn't need to redraw them, but he doesn't hesitate to redraw everything. And so a lot of scenes on episodes of his are completely redrawn by him.
Yeah. And like regarding like the storyboard we're showing, obviously like you shouldn't be fooled because a well-drawn storyboard, like a storyboarder can draw like the can be the best artist in the world,
But
and the
he won't
storyboard
draw.
can be bad. You know,
Yeah, it can be ass,
it's
yeah.
like it's not everything is not in the detail of the drawings.
It's
but-
also about how you compose the
yeah,
frame,
and
right?
like how clear the other indications you give are
Exactly.
and everything. But still, like, I mean, this is literally frame to frame what the anime looks like. Like, I mean, the drawings are so close and everything. And because Mushishi, I mean, we're going to talk about it, but because it's an anime that doesn't move a lot or moves in a very specific way, the storyboard is very important because of the overall aesthetic of the show. And so, yeah, having someone who can draw very detailed things on a show like Mushishi, I think it's important.
And so we did insist a lot on he draws the storyboards because we have another storyboard
Yeah.
to show, which is one of my personal collection. It's from an episode from Mushishi Zokusho.
Yeah,
I think
it's,
episode 14. No?
16.
16, sorry.
Yeah. So I can't really show
Which
it
is one of
because-
the only story episodes that wasn't storyboarded by Hiroshi Nagahama and Mushishi Zokusho.
I can't really show it because we have it on paper here, but like on camera, you won't see anything.
I think that I should be able to upload like scans from it to
You,
well,
I'm not sure you. I mean, it's
I think we'll do it only for
yeah,
only for
because
patrons.
it's written right here. This is a document from animation production.
Well, but you know, Studio Artland doesn't exist anymore.
If you're not a copyright holder or like everything like it, you can't sell it, copy it, distribute it or whatever. So don't do this.
But actually, what I learned about these storyboards from Mr. Nagahama, so because before hosting the panel, so the day before, we had dinner together. So, and also I was quite surprised because I had indeed been introduced to Mr. Nagahama before. So when I was in Tokyo in 2019, Fabrice, who was a close friend of mine and a collaborator of fullfrontal.moe, who has done some translation interpretation for us, quite a few years back, he used to work for an anime convention in Belgium called Made in Asia. And so he knew Mr. Nagahama and Mr. Umakoshi because he had brought them at this anime convention. He had invited them to this convention, so they were already quite acquainted. And because Fabrice and I were living in the same apartment in Tokyo for that summer, he wanted to go see Mr. Nagahama and Mr. Umakoshi to say hello and catch up with them. And I was like, well, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to come with you. I'm a big fan of Mr. Umakoshi. So we went to have dinner together, but he didn't tell them he was coming with like a fan of Mr. Umakoshi or something like that. He just said, "Oh, I'll be with a friend." And so we had a few drinks, we had dinner. It was very interesting. So back then, I'll talk a bit more about the details of it later, but so it was before the announcement of Uzumaki, and he told us about the fact that he was working on Uzumaki and gave us some anecdotes about it. So at one point, Mr. Umakoshi leaves the table. We talk about Aku no Hana with Mr. Nagahama. I tell him that everyone wants to see a season 2 of Aku no Hana. And,
yes, please.
So his answer was, if you support Uzumaki, if Uzumaki has success, maybe he can convince producers to make a season 2 to Aku no Hana. So please
give your money.
Be very supportive of Uzumaki. And then Mr. Umakoshi comes back. And at this moment, Mr. Nagahama says, "Oh, but you know, Mr. Umakoshi draws very well as well." And I'm like, "Of course I know. I have every one of his art books." But it was a very fun night. But you know, and then we also went to karaoke. So extremely fun night. But I didn't think more of it. You know, I don't have the pretense that just because I met somebody once and we had a fun time that they'll remember me or anything. Even though we would still exchange a bit online with Mr. Nagahama. Like a new trailer of Uzumaki would come out and he would send it to me, ask me what I think about it, and also like New Year wishes, stuff like that. And so when I met him again in Orléans, you know, I approached him, just said, "Oh, hello, it's been a while," and he jumped into my arms. He was, "Oh, Dimitri, it's been such a long time." I really didn't expect it. and so we had dinner. We talked a bit about what we would talk about the day after. Had lots of conversations about this and that. And then he said, "Oh, so since you said you wanted to talk about this series, I brought some stuff." And he takes like hundreds of sheets. So 2 storyboards of Mushishi, designs from Utena, and stuff like that. And so he told me that, showing me the storyboards, he told me that they had decided back then that they would sell one, like they would distribute one storyboard of each episode from the production. Like they would sell it for 1,000 yen.
Anime studios are so broke; they're selling storyboards for like
for
cheap,
nothing.
For nothing.
No, but so the goal wasn't to make money or anything. It was just to distribute those storyboards, to leave them out in the open.
And I can confirm that like the one Dimitri has, like it's a real storyboard. Like you have like handwritten notes because
it was used during production.
Yeah, because you know the actual text, like the indications for the lines or the description of what happens is like written like on the computer and everything. But you have like handwritten notes by, I don't know, either the Enshutsu or Nagahama himself. Like so, yeah, it's like a real thing.
But it's not like an animator who decided to get rid of his storyboards.
No.
It's like the production, like on the production team, they decided to share those storyboards.
It's probably the one. I mean, one of the ones the Seisaku Shinko like distributed like to the director or Enshutsu, because you know there are indications like
the different cell layers, right?
Yeah, but also like kantoku kakunin shityo. So like, you know, the director needs to check this cut. So I suppose that you know, it was one of the things Nagahama himself he touched it. He had it in his hands.
But yeah, so because
I'm going to stop playing with it because if I break it.
I did tell him that I had a storyboard that maybe we could discuss, but then I checked which episode it was, and I was like, oh yeah, but it's not a Nagahama episode. But so what's very interesting with the storyboard I have is that so it's not drawn. You have on the back side of each page, you have the
corresponding page from
of the manga, and then some of the panels are copy pasted into the storyboards, like in the storyboards panels. And maybe sometimes there's an additional bit of drawing.
Basically, what seems to be like from reading it, like the storyboarder seems to like not be able to draw like Nagahama.
He doesn't draw as well as
and so the drawings are very sketchy. And so what he does, especially on the close-ups or the faces of the characters, he just like copy pastes the panel from the manga.
He rearranges it a bit. He zooms in a bit. He crops in a bit.
But it's basically the same drawing.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, like he makes some indications for like the background.
But there are very few like different additional sketches.
Yeah, very few
It's-
like additional shots or sketches.
So it's
or
very
everything.
close to the
Yeah,
manga.
it's very close. It's amazing. Yeah, and it's interesting. And how these different storyboarders have these different approaches and this probably different relationship. I suppose like when you do this kind of stuff, I suppose you ask the director first, like, can I just like copy paste from the manga? And on some series maybe they will say no, or maybe they will give instructions like to do so. And on a series like Mushishi, obviously,
Because I think it was Mr. Taniguchi
Yeah.
who told us in the interview we had with him that like on shows like Detective,
Conan.
like Case Closed, they would just copy paste panels.
And I think the same process as here. Like obviously you have to add like handwritten instructions, and especially in
And
this
also, like,
storyboard.
how long you keep
Yeah.
that, like it's like Nagahama said, it's also about because when you read manga you decide of the pacing for yourself, but for one of the work as an director on an anime adaptation is how long do you keep a shot?
Yeah.
How do you direct the pacing? Which shot is do you
Yeah.
keep longer? Which one do you keep
That's
shorter?
very important, and especially when you're adapting a single chapter. I mean, they can be pretty long, but and that's one of the things I wanted to discuss. We talked about how everything is so slow and everything, and it's interesting because I would need to have like more than just one Econte, but it didn't particularly strike me when watching the show that the shots were very long. I thought they were like normal for anime. There are long shots, there are shorter shots and everything, but this storyboard is like 240 shots long, which is a rather low number for an anime, because what they usually say is that the mean number of shots in an anime episode, so like 23 minutes, is like 300 shots. So this is under the mean number. So I can't tell if this is like particularly low, but this is like a bit lower, and obviously having longer shots plays into like this very slow vibe and very slow atmosphere and everything. And talking about things being slow, maybe we can move to the animation.
Just before that, Sakuga Ali commented about how some animators told him that the corrections they got from animation directors were just like straight up manga panels copy pasted.
Yeah, I mean,
these are some very extreme cases. I think.
but in today's context,
it's not very surprising.
It's not very
they
surprising.
don't have time.
They don't have time, and also what everybody's been saying is that not directly the mangaka, but the demands from the sponsors, the producers, and from fans is like you have to be close to the manga, and obviously
so do as the manga does.
And obviously we tend to talk maybe about the shows which do things differently, but I mean that these things happen doesn't surprise me. But let's move to the animation, and this time we have not just images but moving images.
Whoa, moving videos, moving pictures.
Whoa, animation.
But
I dare say it's Sakuga.
In this case, any sense of the word Sakuga that you want,
applies.
it really is Sakuga. But so what's interesting also is that so we plan the things we're gonna publish way in advance, usually like a month, at least 1 to 2 months in advance. So sometimes there's a bit of leeway. For example, last week we weren't sure if we could publish the Araki interview because we didn't know if we would get the feedback in time to publish it. So we are prepared to publish Nagahama's panel last week. In the end, we decided to do it this week. And it's very funny because this week
the heavens have blessed us, and the great Yuichiro Oguro-sama, anime-sama, has talked about Mushishi on Twitter.
Very, very timely, right?
And it's interesting because he talked about something which I had read somewhere, but I couldn't remember where. So I was like, so I have this thing about Mushishi's animation, but I'm not sure about it because I don't remember where it comes from.
And here comes Anime-sama and saves
he
us.
confirms it. So I mean, I was going to say very rude.
Oguro is just the best.
If Anime-sama is watching this, you are the best as always.
I don't think so, but maybe one day. Maybe one day. Wait, we do watch the anime style recordings, right?
Yeah.
So why couldn't he watch our podcasts, right?
Yeah.
But and so since Oguro talked a bit about the Mushishi anime, Teru Minishi also did some tweets about it.
Yeah.
And so So going back to the animation, so what they were saying is that, so one of the things they were saying is that all the Mushi are hand drawn.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, because of the compositing and the movement, because the thing is, the Mushishi are like always on ones, so 24 animated at 24 frames per second. So there's this, so it's very, very fluid. And like the compositing makes it look so that, yeah, you might sometimes, not always, but sometimes like mistake it for 3D CG, but no, it's all hand drawn, and on ones, so extremely fluid, which is why they look
That's
like so
a lot of drawings.
yeah, unnatural and everything. And Nishi's comment was that, so on one scene, she didn't say which, but it could be the scene we're showing because it's so damn
There are
complex.
so many Mushis.
Yeah, and it moves so much.
Because when there is like one or two, it's
You
not,
might not notice it.
Yeah, and you can feel that they are often feel that they are hand drawn. But for example, in the scene that we're showing right now, it doesn't seem like it's
Because it's overlaid on top of,
exactly
of the
compositing,
backgrounds,
etc. And the effects make it look so that when I watch I watched this episode after seeing Ogura's and Nishi Streets, right? So I knew it was hand drawn, but haven't I had read the tweet first, I would have thought this is CG.
Yeah. So and so what Nishi was saying is that on one scene, maybe this one, a single shot, like a single cut, took like around 3,000
images.
drawings, and so she said that it was way too much. So the Enshutsu managed to bring it down to 1,000, but like 3,000 is crazy. I mean, to give like a point of comparison, Toei Animation famously has this limit on the number of frames which you can use in an episode. I'm not sure if it's like the overall number of drawings, like Genga and Doga, or just the Genga. I'm not sure, but anyways, like
The
Toei's limit is 3,500 frames per episode.
So just one
just
one
one
scene
cut.
Nishitomi is talking about would be the whole
yeah,
limit for the
yeah,
episode,
yeah,
right?
and-
For
yeah.
one single scene.
For once, so absolutely crazy. And the other thing is that not just the Mushi are like on ones and 100 and everything, but the characters are almost systematically on twos or on threes, but like on twos. So like 12 frames per second. So it's also like a huge amount of frames just for the characters. And what it seems to be, I mean, the way it seems to be done is not just it's on twos, but also very close spacing. So every drawing is very close to each other,
right?
So they move, like just like they talk, they move so slowly. And it's like, it's fun because when you watch Mushishi, especially if you don't particularly pay attention to this, it might look like the show doesn't move a lot because there are a lot of still shots or just pans
But
or the
when it
backgrounds,
moves.
whatever. When it moves very slowly, so you don't notice it, right? But when you think about it, the number of drawings they used
It's huge.
Huge.
Well,
Like,
there's
it's crazy.
there's this anecdote about Mr. Umakoshi. So he first worked on Jube-chan season 2 with Mr. Nagahama, and like the production was so hard and messy and chaotic. And so when he finished working on Jube-chan, he said, "Never again. I won't take another job like this anymore." And then
he works
and
on
then
Mushishi.
which was even harder,
Yeah.
even more chaotic,
Yeah.
even worse. And so at the end of Mushishi, he declared something like, the first part of the first season of Mr. Umakoshi has ended. It's finished. He's dead.
Yeah, but
The first coming, I think it's like that. Yeah, the first coming of Mr.
Yeah.
Umakoshi
I mean,
has
it
done.
must have been so hard, and especially on the in-betweeners. Because when you're a Genga man, you can just like do the extremes and say, okay, put a lot of drawings in between. It's not my job, and this is why the in-betweeners are so important, right? And this is a topic which has been emerging like in Sakuga discussion like for a few years. It's called melting.
Yeah, the melting.
When basically because most of the time it's because of the in-betweens, the character like goes off model during the movement, and like the proportions like are the same. And
Yeah,
everything.
and so you can feel that the drawings don't match with each other, right?
And on something like Mushishi, this is the biggest risk because you have so many in
Drawings,
between,
yeah.
and it moves. I mean, basically, it's full animation, right? So it moves so much and so slowly that if
One single difference,
and
like single
yeah.
error, and you notice it right away.
and it collapses. And I do think you do have moments where it works better than others, in Mushishi. But like it goes to show, like on a series like this, the key is not necessarily the key animators, is the in-betweeners. Like on something like this, you need good in-betweeners.
But then again, even in the animation team, you have like
you have Umakoshi, you have
Nishi, you have Baba, I think also.
Yeah,
because
and also like on the first episode of Zokusho, so his scene hasn't been identified, but you have Takeshi Honda. Like, okay,
just like that.
Just like that. So yeah, you do have some big names.
But and so what I wanted to talk about is that, so my big obsession around Umakoshi and all the animators around him, so is of course this lineage that we have discussed many times on fullfrontal.moe through interviews with Mr. Umakoshi, with Mr. Kagawa, with Mr. even Hayama Junichi, with Miss Nishiterumi. So this lineage from Mr. Masami Suda to Hayama Junichi to Mr. Kagawa to Mr. Umakoshi to Miss Nishi, and then also going like still continuing through Miss Nishi's disciples, so one of the many stages of like the Umakoshi's school or lineage is a studio called Studio Shokaze. Which, so it's not really an animation studio per se, it's more a gathering of animators, right? We have talked about it in the past already, right? It's just like a few animators that gathered around Mr. Umakoshi. And the way Studio Shokaze often gets nicknamed Umakoshi's little like personal army, right? And the way Studio Shokaze was created basically is that because the production site for Mushishi was very far away from where they live, Umakoshi, Nishi, Baba, the other animators who were there, the founding of Studio Shokaze.
Yeah, basically the three like main animation directors.
But and also
Mushishi.
some other animators, right? Decided to rent an apartment in Nerima. So closer to where they all live.
You have like Artland's address written right here. So I can't read all of it because it's kanji, but like if you want, I can disclose the anime studio's
Studio
address.
Artland went bankrupt and doesn't exist anymore. Which funny story. This storyboard was put on auction on Mandarake just a few weeks or months after Studio Artland went bankrupt. So at first I thought that
it was like remains from the studio.
Yeah, exactly. The studio emptied all the archives and they dropped them off at Mandarake, something like that.
It wouldn't be something. I mean, it's the kind of thing that can happen. Like knowing anime studios, like it's not like out of the question.
It can happen, but and the timing also was. But so anyway, all these animators decide to rent an apartment in Nerima because it's way less commute time to go there, and they work from there. And when the production of Mushishi ends, they're like, well, it was very fun to work together like that. We should keep doing that. And so they decide to create this Studio Shokaze and keep renting an apartment. But it's basically just renting an apartment and working from it.
Which is like, I mean, I don't know if it still happens a lot anymore, but like happened a lot over the history of the anime industry. So yeah, nothing that exceptional.
And of course, when you have somebody like Mr. Umakoshi at the head, he's like such
he brings people.
Exactly, because people want to work with him because he's such a skilled character designer and animation director.
Yeah.
Also, and so also one thing I was wondering was if Studio Shokaze was still in activity, because I like. It doesn't necessarily. I thought maybe they had split up, or
they're kind of all working better, in different places.
But when we met Mr. Umakoshi last time, I did ask him, and he said, "No, it's still going on."
Yeah, I mean, they maybe they work there, but they just don't work on the same thing.
Yeah, because
especially like Umakoshi is busy with My Hero Academia and Bones and everything.
But so what's incredible, like what's kind of awesome about stuff like Studio Shokaze is that it allows for these creators to work, like to help each other out, and so that's why for example on Mawaru Pingtlam, you have Umakoshi working on it on a few scenes. It's because Nishi, who was character designer and animation director, brought him over since they were at the same place, and like also Shoko Nakamura. And then in exchange, on for example Darling the Franxx, you have Shoko Nakamura inviting Nishiterumi to storyboard an episode or two. So
and I think we're going to talk more about this like next episode, because we're going to talk about outsourcing a lot more. But yeah, these small structures where everyone works together are very important for the relationships and for the connections and for the training. Because since
Right.
everybody is like in the same place in a small apartment, imagine you're like a dogaman or doing Nigen. You just go there and you have like your senpai or your master just giving you their own Nigen, and they're just here like to train you personally. And this is one of the things that people, and especially Sakuga blog and everything, have been talking about, like the chain of mentorship is breaking
Right.
down. And I'm not saying that such small studios are like the ideal, but when
No, but
such studios
they're
were much
important.
more common, you did have like this sort of hands-on training which could take place much more easily. And now these small studios have mostly like disappeared, and the big studios have difficulty like implementing their own training systems.
So you say such studios have disappeared, yet
It's hard to say actually.
yeah, but so what I was thinking about is, wouldn't you say, even though they are very much closer to an actual anime production studio, that studios like new small studios like Back Films or like E&H,
Yeah, but
by Nakam,
obviously, but something like Bug Films, they have to produce actual anime, and they have to work on the like either doing outsourcing or producing their own stuff. So I mean, their financial situation is kind of different.
yeah, of course.
So
but
it puts like constraints which are very different. But in another way, you could say that maybe small studios
on
kind
the
of may
bit
reproduce.
closer,
are
to this
closer,
kind of venture.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get back to Hiroshi Nagahama.
Yeah.
And let's talk about another anime he directed,
Which is
which is Akunohana,
and there's like
The
I think-
Flowers of Evil. Of Evil.
of Evil, and I think there's very strong continuity between like Akunohana and Mushishi, because
Well, at first I didn't think so.
but
And then watching Mushishi again, I felt like, no, there's actually big continuity
and
between the two.
especially in regards to what we were saying about how slow the movement is, because basically what he's doing on Mushishi is like, so put a lot of drawings so that it's very slow. But I mean, when you're on hand-drawn anime, and especially TV anime where you have a schedule and everything, like you have a limit. You can only go as far as
yes.
But then if you want to be as fluid and as slow and have as many drawings as possible, and if you can't do it hand-drawn,
How can you do it?
naturally the logical next step is to do rotoscopy,
Yeah, with
right?
rotoscopy, right?
So it makes perfect sense.
And so you know how it, and like how he was offered the project, right? So
I don't think so.
basically it's King Records, I think,
Yeah.
who approached him asking if he wanted to do Akunohana. And at first he refused. He declined. And I said, why don't you want to do it? And he was, oh, no. I'm very interested in doing it. The manga is awesome. I would love to adapt it. But I won't do it because there's only one way to do it. And I know there is no way that
It will work.
producers will accept it. I'm like, well, go ahead, say it, shoot. We'll try to make it happen. What is it? I can do it only if it's in rotoscopy. And there is no way
Yeah.
producers will accept to do it with rotoscopy because it's too expensive, it's not efficient,
And
but it's
it's-
the only way.
And people don't like it.
Well, so that we're gonna talk about that, but that wasn't the point. It's really like there's no way producers will accept it. It's too
It's
much
too
of a hassle.
complicated, yeah.
It's too complicated, and the producer from King Record is like, well, we're gonna make it happen. Don't worry. You're gonna get your way, and we got Akunohana.
Yeah,
And also, so considering the continuity is that, so for Akunohana, so the fact that he committed full to, I can only do it if I do it this way. I have this vision. It needs to be rotoscopy. We're gonna do rotoscopy. It's my way, no way.
Yeah.
My way or no way. And from that, I understood. So I love Akunohana. I think it's the first Nagahama anime I watched, and I was like, this director is so ambitious, to go through with this vision. And for Mushishi, since the first time I watched it, I didn't necessarily have the vision. I didn't. For me, they were very different. And then when I realized, well, but actually no, like Mushishi has so much thought put into it, and it's such an ambitious anime. Actually, there's very much continuity between the two.
Yeah.
They're both very ambitious projects where Hiroshi Nagahama committed to a vision, committed to a way of doing, and went through all out on it, right?
And the fact that they're all about vibes as well.
Yeah.
Like,
And the vibes of Akunohana.
Yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
So, and this has been said like 1,000 times, I think, but that's why rotoscopy works and why it's necessary,
Yes.
because it plays a huge part in the vibe and in it looking weird.
So let's go back on how it was received. So, of course, Akunohana, very controversial anime. Extremely controversial. When it came out, everybody, it looks ass, it looks disgusting, why does it look like that? Anime shouldn't look like that, blah, 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 blah. But what I found interesting is that, so when I talked about the relationship between Akunohana and Uzumaki, over time, many, many people learned to appreciate how Akunohana looks. Because so for me, when I watched it, I didn't think, it looks ass. I thought, it looks awesome. It looks incredible. The drawings aren't beautiful. Yes, it doesn't look beautiful. But Akunohana isn't about beauty.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, if you think Akunohana should look good, should be beautiful, there should be beauty in Akunohana. And actually, I think that there is a lot of beauty into it, but not a conventional sense of beauty. But if you think Akunohana should be beautiful, I think you miss entirely the point of Akunohana.
And especially like, I think the original manga is by Shuzo Oshimi.
It's by Oshimi, yes.
And Akunohana as a manga, like it's one of his early works. So the drawings aren't, they're still like anime-like or manga-like,
Yeah, exactly.
But if you look at his more recent work, it's especially exactly the same vibe in the sense that he's doing like more realistic drawings, but which are like offsetting, unnerving, like they look different.
I think that if he had the ability back then to do it this way, he would have done.
And so in the anime Akunohana, like Nagahama saw this,
Yeah.
He saw that you can't have the character designs from the manga because they're too cartoony,
they don't fit.
They're too childlike.
They don't fit the themes.
And so you need to get a step further, and it works. It works. So
and so it's so because like Akunohana as a story is very unsettling, unnerving, and just having these designs. But in the end also, but I think not everyone is able to do this, but to find beauty in something that looks horrid, that looks horrendous, or that isn't, finding beauty in something that isn't beautiful. And in the end, I think that a lot of the characters, they are very charming. So I forgot the name, but
you have weird fetishes, but it's okay.
Yeah, but that's what the anime is all about, right?
Yeah. Dimitri is actually a Akunohana character come to life.
Well, no, but I resonated a lot with the main character of Akunohana. With this, I have these deep fetishes internalized that I don't dare to express, and about learning to accept them, or to accept the weirdness. And to express it, and I've been very moved by Akunohana. And that's why I've been a big fan of Nagahama since then. Is because, of course, Oshimi's manga. I like the manga less than the anime actually, because I thought that the way Nagahama translated all these themes from the manga resonated even more with me, and the way he portrayed them on screen. And also the music, it's all the choices he made really upped the original source material, which is already very good.
Yeah, I agree. Like I haven't either rewatched or reread it, but I remember at the time, I jumped on the manga not because because I loved the anime, but because, as you know, the anime doesn't adapt everything. So I just wanted the what comes next, And I remember that reading the manga, I was like, is this what it actually looks like? Great, very different adaptation, but great adaptation in that sense as well. Yeah,
and so chat agrees with what you said about the fact that indeed today Oshimi goes for, in Shinowadachi, he goes for a more realistic style, which wasn't there
Yeah.
in his earlier works, right?
Thank you, chat. I love you, chat.
So right now,
Yeah.
Mr. Nagahama is working on another on a
Another
new anime
horror manga
which,
adaptation.
So which we have been waiting for. Well, Akunohana isn't really horror, right?
Yeah, it's horror
Adjacent.
Yeah, horror adjacent.
Horrorcore.
Yeah, and you know, which brings us back to Kawajiri and everything.
Exactly, full circle.
It's all connected.
It's all a spiral. Oh,
Yeah.
funny. Next anime, Uzumaki. So, Uzumaki.
Which means a spiral in Japanese, in
Exactly.
case you don't know.
It's not a sequel to Naruto.
I wish.
So, Uzumaki, one of the most famous manga by horror master Junji Ito. So, people have been asking for a Uzumaki anime for a lot of time, right?
Which I think is a bad idea, because considering like the structure of the manga, which is very repetitive, I mean,
Yeah,
spiral.
spiral.
But and I mean, it's got a very weird pacing. So I'm very curious to see what this Uzumaki anime will be like, because in terms of structure and pacing and rhythm, it's
Also,
so very weird.
People are very afraid because until now, every other anime adaptation of a Junji Ito work hasn't been very well received, right?
Yeah.
And well, I mean,
And this one is going to be divisive.
I mean, yeah, of course, people
think.
like you will have people who love it, people who don't, and so I think that people will love. I mean, or rather, Mr. Nagahama's episodes will be clearly the best episodes. So I think that has already been announced. Maybe not officially by the channels, but I remember talking about it. So, because as I said, so when I met Mr. Nagahama the first time in 2019, it was a few months before the official announcement. And so we had dinner with Umakoshi, Fabrice, and Mr. Nagahama. And so he told us, so right now I'm working on my next work. It's an adaptation of Junji Ito's Uzumaki. First thing, Mr. Umakoshi's reaction was priceless. He was just like a surrogate. You're working on Uzumaki? It's one of my favorite manga. Please, can I work on it? And so, and Mr. Nagahama's
So basically, the reason you will get Umakoshi on Uzumaki is because of the guy right here.
No. I was just present at the moment where he
No,
asked.
it's because Full Frontal is very big.
They always work together. Stop it.
We are very big in the anime industry, you know, and we get these contacts and everything.
No, but anyway, Mr. Nagahama's answer was also very funny, because basically he kind of taunted Umakoshi by saying, oh yeah, and I'm working with this new technique where I basically don't need a character designer. So, it was something like the characters are in 3D, but the hair is in 2D and stuff, and so I don't really need a character designer on it and stuff. I was like, did you just tell off Mr. Umakoshi? But so one of the things we said during the panel, because so we wanted to try to talk about Uzumaki, but there are a lot of issues which make it so that they still don't know when and how it will be released. And because of that, so it was a bit difficult to know, okay, what can we say about it? So I said, well, I know that Mr. Umakoshi confirmed us that he's working on it. It's not something that most people care about, but at least we can say that, So indeed, Mr. Umakoshi is indeed working. He is already done.
He was working.
Yeah, exactly.
Uzumaki.
I think he worked on Uzumaki like in 2021, something like that. Like, it's been a while since he has done his scenes and stuff. And since he hadn't seen Mr. Nagahama in quite a while. Like when we saw him in August, he hadn't seen Mr. Nagahama for like 9 months or 1 year, 1 whole year, something like that. And so like I said, so Mr. Umakoshi has worked on Uzumaki, and so during this dinner, among other things, so he told us how it was going to be structured. So basically, the anime will be 4 episodes. But not a 20 minutes traditional length, I think, because it's a bit more,
basically.
Yeah, so it's 4 episodes, but Mr. Nagahama said that he directed them as if it was a 2-hour-long movie,
Yeah.
basically. Like in his head, he directed it like a movie.
That's the kind of thing like snobbish anime directors say.
No, but it's something that we're seeing more and more,
Yeah.
you know, because so as you said, like, well, Pluto isn't really thought out
Structured
like a movie,
but
you have Orbital Children,
Yeah,
Chikigai
which
Shon
was-
Shoujo, which
and-
are separate episodes, but in Japan was released as 2 movies.
Yeah, and
the upcoming Dead Demons
basically you have like
Destruction.
multiple things happening at the same time. You have like streaming platforms which don't have
Yeah.
like stick to like the 1 or 2 cores format.
Yeah, and even the episode length,
Yeah,
because they are
yeah.
not TV. They
Yeah.
they are not a
They-
TV slot, so you don't need to have
Yeah, so
traditional.
there's that. There's the fact that they are trying like new distribution methods in Japan, like so they did Orbital Children and stuff like
But
that.
because
And
for
then-
Dedede, we know it releases in
Yeah.
cinema, but we don't know if there's a TV broadcast and international broadcast.
I
right?
think it will be like released like Orbital Children probably. I don't know if it's been announced. And then you have stuff like what happened with Freerun or Oshinoko, where you have like an extra long episode at some point in the broadcast. Most times, I mean, it's the beginning, but you know, it could, for example, maybe be the end if schedules allowed for it, because in terms of schedule management,
Yeah.
obviously it has to be the first episode. But yeah, you have like formats changing, which is interesting. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't have a lot of comments to make, but it's an interesting development.
I mean, it's interesting to finally see that because the distribution methods changed, that finally we see some change in
In the
form,
production,
because
yeah.
the form itself
Yeah.
was.
I mean, it's dependent on
yeah, it's
like,
dependent on the way it's distributed, and now that we have free methods of of distribution which are free from those constraints,
Yeah.
it's interesting to see people tinker with it. And so, because for Uzumaki, so it's produced by Adult Swim, right? So because they've decided to invest a lot in producing producing anime, and so it's produced at Studio Drive, which is like one branch of IG. Dedicated
the many branches of IG.
yeah, so what I'm a bit curious about is that, so because I remember specifically asking him where it's produced, and he said at Studio Drive, it's a branch of IG that was created especially for working with like Adult Swim and international teams. But Studio Drive has produced quite some other animes too in the meantime. So it doesn't. So I don't know if it was created with this intention. It changed along the way, or maybe I didn't understand Mr. Nagahama's response quite well, because since it was like just a meeting over a few beers and a bit of food, I had to remember everything in my head, and so. But when the announcement was made, I did share all these small anecdotes that he had shared with me that evening. I did share them publicly, but I did wait for the official announcement. I didn't go ahead and leak the announcement before that. And so, among other things, what he told me is that there has been a few works of Junji Ito which have been adapted into anime, but he refused for Uzumaki to have an anime adaptation. He was against it. But his Tantosha, his editor, would often tell him, come on, are you sure you don't want to make an Uzumaki anime? Want you at least try it? Want you at least give it a chance? Like, I have a list of potential directors. Want you at least look at it? So Mr. Ito looks at the list and says, oh, okay, that's Mr. Nagahama. I'll accept. And so they first, Mr. Ito and Mr. Nagahama meet each other for the first time. And Mr. Ito tells Mr. Nagahama, oh, I'm a great fan. I'm very happy that you're in charge of the anime because I love your work. And Mr. Nagahama is a bit clueless. He's like, really? You're a fan of Mushishi? He's like, oh, no. I'm a huge fan of Akunohana. I have all the DVDs at home. It's amazing. And so, and the when you see the first teaser, like other teasers that were released,
it's all connected.
It's a natural connect. Like the connection
it's like
between Akunohana.
he's keeping like this weird, very slow, very both natural and unnatural movement from rotoscope, right? But with the designs from the manga. Like he's doing the same movement but with different pictures, basically. The same kind of movement as he did in Akuno but the visual style is different because this time it's like, I mean, basically a reproduction of the manga.
Yeah, because so of course he did many very bold choices. So for example, it's all black and white, like the manga, and so of course Uzumaki does a ton of expectations. You know, there's a lot of fans. It has this mythical aura, and so people have been expecting for such a long time that the expectations are very, very high. But I think that, of course, some people will be disappointed because they have very off expectations for it. But so first of all, as we've discussed until now, so Mr. Nagahama is a master at understanding the essence of a work. So just for that, I trust that he will be like that.
Yeah, good.
He will be very like he's probably the best person to have this work. And so what I think is funny is, for example, so there are a lot of fans of Uzumaki, so like even within the industry. So for example, like as we said, Mr. Omakoshi, or also our friend Mr. Yukio Takatsu, who did the openings for Nisei Monogatari. So I talked with him a bit about it because he's also a big fan of like horror manga, and so when I showed him the trailer for Uzumaki, because he said, "Oh, I would have loved to work on Uzumaki. Like it's a manga I love, and I would have loved to work on it." And I showed him the trailer, and I was like, "It's incredible because that's exactly how I would have done it too."
And if Yukio says this kind of thing, that it means that it's very.
Yukio, so
it comes from the heart.
Yeah, Yukio, he has worked on a lot of commercial thing, but his thing is also like he loves like abstract art and
and he doesn't speak a lot.
But
so when he says stuff like this, it matters.
Like it's a real praise.
Yeah.
But especially like like he's he thinks a lot about art and choices, and when he does more personal projects, it's very like weird and abstract stuff. And so if he had thought about how he would go, like how he would do it if he was given free reign, and he's like, I would have done the same. I think that's like. It was really the way to go. Yeah. And about the technique used, because the way the characters move is very strange, right?
And the information we've gotten has always been very confusing about like, is it 3D, is it 2D, is it both, is it neither, is it...
Because at first, like I said, when I first talked about it 4 years ago, so Mr. Nagahama talked about how like the characters are 3D, the hair is 2D, like it's a mix of 3D and 2D, and that, but he didn't give many more details. And then we saw the trailers with the movements and such, and the movement feels, you can feel that there's something strange with it. And so, basically, what it is, it's 3D motion capture placed on the actors. So you have the actual actors playing and the movements being recorded. And then you have the models, so 3D models used with them. And additionally to that, you have 2D drawings.
It's so like it's like rotoscope, but like you rotoscope it twice.
Exactly.
Basically.
It's close to rotoscopy without being with extra steps in the middle. So you don't get the uncanny designs such as Akunohana. You can have you can have models that are closer to designs like
you can
manga
do what you want with the
anime designs,
models and designs,
but you have movements that are closer to rotoscopy. So it's an in between the two, right? So like a logical evolution of Akunohana, basically. But
and after Uzumaki is done, Nagahama will finally do like 4D anime or something.
I don't know what he can invent more, but I mean, not necessarily invent, but I think it's incredible that he has all those ideas and he's given the resources to do them because
because it sounds so complicated. It must take so much time.
And it does take a lot of time because it was first announced in September 2019. And it was supposed to come out in 2021. Of course, in the middle you had the pandemic, which did put some strain on the production, which did slow down
things a bit.
Production. But it's not just that. And I remember that you had the I don't know if it was the director or at least the manager of IG, like the international part of IG, and who is in charge, among others, of Uzumaki on the IG side, who posted on LinkedIn the fact that they they had to push back the release of Uzumaki to an unannounced date because they wanted to give the production team the time they needed to like go through with the vision fully.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that we're not gonna rush this. It takes time. There's vision, but we're gonna go all the way, and we're gonna leave time. In fact, there has been quite a few hiccups along the way, quite a few bizarre and deranging things happening, which we will discuss in the Patreon exclusive episode. So if you want to hear more about Uzumaki's production, then I invite you to go on our Coffee page and subscribe to the Eva tier to have access to tomorrow's extra episode.
But before that, we have to talk about justice and bravery, and
well, and food. Right?
Food. Yeah. So this is our seasonals corner.
Yeah, so last week after talking about the main topic, we have decided that these podcasts aren't just a way to talk about what we have published, but also just to talk about things that's airing. Because first of all, it forces us to watch what is airing right now, right? Yeah.
Which takes more time than you would believe.
Yeah. So honestly, I wish I could have more time. I wish I could just not sleep, no need for sleep would be awesome. I would have time to watch all anime in the world and do all my work. Sadly, I must sleep, even though I do not sleep enough, clearly. But still, I do manage to find some time to watch some stuff. But that's why also we have decided that we would only talk about 2 shows each week that we choose, because that way we have time to catch up and watch all the episodes.
Yeah,
and say interesting stuff about it. And so
this time we were supposed to talk about. We will talk about 2 original mecha adjacent anime.
Robot anime.
One. Yeah. But before that, we want to do a follow up on last week.
on Delicious in Dungeon, right?
Yeah, because
you felt like you did Delicious in Dungeon dirty, right?
Yeah. We were both kind of disappointed with it. Disappointed. I don't know if this is the right word, but
No. I don't like the way they portray the food. It's not that I don't like it. It's that I don't think it looks that good, but I don't think anime food in general looks that good.
And on my end,
I did say that I found it was very fun. I had a lot of fun watching it.
Okay, I was mean.
You were mean, exactly.
Yeah, I was mean, and I said it. I don't find it very funny.
You're an anime elitist who watches Mushishi.
I hate everything. Yeah. But this week's episode 6, 5, I already forgot. 6 has been a lot of fun. So as you might have seen on Twitter or whatever already, it's a subcontracted episode. So to a studio which I think is Enishiya. But what's interesting is all the freelancers and all the people they brought. And the reason we wanted to talk about this episode is because it's good. But because
it's awesome.
It's also the Sakan debut, so the first animation director work on a TV series, but I think at all of good friend would be overstating it, but a good acquaintance of mine, Oshima Toya. So Toya-san, you're the best.
Congratulations on your Sakan debut. Woohoo!
Who basically I met at a few anime style events in Japan, and he's super nice, and so and I saw that
he's super skilled
and he's super good because this episode is so he handled the second part, so with Jelchuk, with his where he has very very big ears, which is very fun, but it's what the show should be more fun animation, more
I think it's the best looking episode till now.
Yeah,
everybody was oh yeah, Hikarashi, but it's 2 seconds, and but this episode, first half, a lot of very expressive, funny faces, but not just from Masil, right? So this time it's from Laios. I thought so. First half, I thought, very fun, expressive faces and animation, awesome. And then we cut to the second part of the episode. Incredible.
Yeah.
And the smears, man! The smears!
And
such good-looking smears too!
Yeah, and Kevin's article on the show is very good in that regard, in that he says like people have misguided expectations, like from Trigger and when
Yeah, but that's
and-
because
yeah.
for people, Trigger equals
Is Imashi.
Imashi.
Yeah,
But
and-
it's been a while since it's not been that,
and
right?
that's what Kevin is saying, and you know, I'm not like I want Dungeon Meshi to look like an Imashi show, because no, that's not the question, but I would like it to look more like this episode where the animation has fun, basically.
Yeah, I agree.
And what's great about it, I think, also is the ability like to switch from like a register to another, and because you know you have like someone like Takeshi Mainami who's on it, who's doing like this very Kameda inspired stuff with brushes, and it's very intense and very strong, etc. You have the very comical cartoony animation, and you have all these very young animators. Like I noticed, for example, you have Yoto, so a very young animator who's been noticed on Jujutsu Kaisen season 2. Who's been doing incredible action work, but here he's doing more like comedy. And then you have super realistic people, like Ren Onodera, who did like the moment part. I mean, you can watch it on the border, I guess.
Mimic.
When the mimic like comes out, and you know it's like this sort of crab or whatever walking in. It looks like CG because the way he focuses on volume and shading. I mean,
it's just that he's so good at working with the volumes, right?
It's you know how. And it was the same, like the I forgot the name of the animator, but you know the free run dance scene, like Myon. You know, it's this movement that realistic animators have in Japan right now, which you can see a lot in Kisekoi, My Dress Up Darling. You know, where it looks like CG.
But it's not.
But because the way they animate like volumes and
their understanding of volumes and space. And space.
And it's very weird, and I don't think it always works, but like. It's technically impressive, and so you have a guy like that doing this on Dungeon Meshi, just next to that very cartoony animation and everything. So it's very cool to see like these different styles of animation express themselves, and a bunch of very young guys, most of them, except Mainami, who's old. But
Sakuga Ali says that it reminds him kind of Nakamura Nozika.
You could say some of that. Yeah, there's some of that, obviously, and I mean. Toya is like a student. I mean, he's literally a student of Ohira's, because he studied
at the university,
at Nagoya University.
Yeah,
I mean, literally
right.
the first thing he said when we met is like, "I'm Shinya Ohira student." so and I had no idea who he was at the time, so I was hesitating between is he a super famous guy or is he a nobody? I don't know. But yeah, he's very nice, and you can see
Shinya Ohira's student, right?
Yeah, and you can see some of that, like in the way he does some stuff. So yeah. So sorry, Dungeon Meshi. This time it was really good.
Yeah, you redeemed yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And we hope that we get more episodes like this one.
Yes,
of course.
Perfectly.
But so back on track to what we originally promised last week. We said today. So last week was autistic elf girls. This week it's
gay robots.
Gay robots. So first of all, let's talk about Metallic Rouge, maybe, right?
Okay. So as I call it, metallic sleep.
Oh, again, you know, Matteo can't help himself. You know, such a hater. If something released after 2000, it's bad. You know.
No, Mushishi is after 2000, and it's good.
Yeah, it's
Mushishi is the exception.
It's an exception, right? Oh my God. But first of all, Metallic Rouge. So Studio Bones. Original animation project.
Kind of anniversary project.
25th, like quarter century anniversary project, right? That's how Minami introduced the project to us, right?
And you know, in the credits, like you do have also, like the Bones logo with
the 25th anniversary. And so original anime. First of all, at least let's applaud the fact that
it's an original.
Bones still commits to do original anime.
It's more like Izubuchi had like this pile of projects this big in the drawer, and so they took one randomly and okay, let's do Metallic Rouge.
And so which one of the Bones studio is it?
I have no idea.
He did tell us. So if I'm not mistaken, it's the one that was in charge of the Eureka films, right?
Oh yeah,
that's right. Because
I should have checked that. I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure it's that, right? Well, so in any way,
go read our interview.
Exactly, you can check out Matteo and Ludovic's interview with Masahiko Minami they did, where we do talk about it. But I'm kind of sure that that's the story, right? That so Studio
basically they were free.
Yeah, Studio E finished the Eureka trilogy. So what do they do next? They start working on this original anime project, so by Izubuchi, big master of sci-fi anime, right?
So this is the thing with, I mean, one of the things I have with Metallic Rouge, you know, it's like this kind of classic thing that, you know, with robots and you know, it's the classic robot story, right? And so when you do the classic robot story, you either have to do it like, just like it's expected to go, but do everything perfectly, or put a twist on it,
Yeah.
which makes it really original and really good. And
But here, so you think that
It does
there's no twist, but it's not done
I mean,
good enough.
Yeah, and I know you've only watched episode 1. There's one long scene in like 3 or 4 where it's basically Rouge like having a guilt trip, sort of dream flashback, etc. And that's interesting. That's an interesting aspect. An interesting direction they're going towards. But like, I mean, the writing as a whole doesn't convince me, and the action scenes look kind of good, but it's not exceptional enough to, you know, hook me.
So
Episode 1 and 2 look really nice,
and then it
after
gets
that
worse.
I get, yeah.
I mean, so I love the character designs.
Yeah.
The character designs look incredible.
They remind me a bit of actually Code Geass. Especially
You
like
think?
not Rouge, but like the other girl, I forgot her name. Like you know, the big eyes, the big glasses, and the way the mouth is drawn.
So of course, I
reminds
think
me a bit
like the
of Clamp.
the volumes and
Yeah.
the lines on there. But I understand why you would think about it. I understand why you get this feeling. It's very different, but at the same time, there's some similarity. And so in the chat, they don't agree about the classic robot story. They're asking, isn't it more going for tokusatsu?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, so this is a conversation we had yesterday with Ludovic, right? Because so if you're careful enough, we didn't to say that we're talking about mecha, we're talking about robot.
yeah, but when we said that to Minami, he said, no, Metallic Rouge isn't robot. It's like, powered suits.
Yeah, it's
action
powered suits. Yeah, but so the thing is, so it's still the thing is that all of this is still science fiction, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, but I mean, my answer to this would be, I mean, yeah, the action is like tokusatsu because they transform in those suits, etc. But like in terms of world building, it's the endless thing. Like, you know, it's Blade Runner. Like, you know, you can't.
I mean, the Blade Runner influences.
You can't escape from Blade Runner, and so it's the same old story of are robots human, and robots are a metaphor for discrimination and everything. And it's not like these are interesting and important subjects. These are, but like, you know, this is a story we've seen thousands of times, and like,
if you always serve the same soup, it gets boring after a while.
And so whether like the main characters are like tokusatsu heroes, or they drive giant robots, or they're replicants, like it doesn't matter. Like
it's the same story.
It's the same story. So yeah,
because aside of like, you know, the meme of in this mecha show it doesn't focus on the mechas, it focuses on the characters. But that's the thing, it's like the robot is just a tool, it's just there. So the fact that it's a powered suit rather than a robot doesn't change the fact that first of all, it's all science fiction, and even though there are some tropes of robot anime, like those themes are classic like sci-fi themes.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Well,
do we
let's
move
talk.
on?
Yeah, we move on to.
Are we
bam,
finally?
bam, 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 bam. Brave Barn. It's way too awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Honestly, I mean, of course, it's so original super robot anime. I wasn't expecting a lot of it. I thought, okay, yeah, sure, Masami Obari is on it. It can be fun, but no, it's way too awesome. And so one big thing, you know, first thing I thought while watching it was that so some podcasts, anime related or otaku culture related podcasts.
I have no idea which podcast you might be talking about.
Dumpster Taste, something like that. Often say, oh, mecha anime is dead. It's in a state where you don't have new shows coming out, and you have just a few, and nobody watches them. Blah blah blah. Bullshit. The fact that you have a company like Cygames, you know, like one of the biggest game companies in Japan, which produces also a lot of anime now, which has its own anime studio also, that they basically say, Masami Obari, here, take this money, make your anime original project. Super Robot, anything, like, do your thing. And that they let him do an original project like that, which is just a love letter to Super Robot anime, and especially like to Obari style mecha anime, like the Yusha series and stuff. And like it's, I would say, a parody of Yusha series anime, but not a parody in the sense of it makes fun of, but more that it laughs, it plays with the codes of Yusha series
because,
anime,
you know,
right?
that's my counter argument. What you're saying is that, I mean, of course, saying that mecha anime is dead is a dumb take.
And first of all, because we had a big debate yesterday with Ludovic, who said people have to stop saying mecha anime. That's what stupid Americans say. It's robot anime.
Yeah, but
mecha anime doesn't exist because mecha is short for mechanical. It encompasses everything from, like, Yamato is mecha anime. If it has a spaceship, if it has cars, if it has planes, it's mecha anime. So people should stop saying mecha anime the correct way, and the way it's said mostly in Japan is robot anime, right?
I don't know about like mecha anime or whatever.
I mean, I'm just a messenger. Don't shoot me. I'm saying what Ludo is saying. But think about it does make sense. And
I mean,
it has truth to it.
It's true that in Japan they do say roboto anime. But, you know, I mean, that's how, like, translation works. I mean, we've been saying in English and even in French, like, you know, we've been saying mecha anime for like 20, 30 years.
It's not too late to accept that it was wrong and to correct oneself, you know?
Yeah, but no, I mean, we're not going to come in and say, oh, let's say robot anime now because it's good, because it's how the Japanese do it. Like, come on. Who cares? But anyways,
I care.
Anyways, my counter argument related to you know, that parody aspect was that, I mean, obviously mecha isn't dead, but I mean, Bravern, I mean, it's a parody, but I would call it a fan service show, basically.
Also,
and you know, it's pure fan service.
It exaggerates all the tropes that you find in shows like Gao Gai Gao.
And so in that sense, like, the audience, like, it's not something like, for example, Darling in the Franxx, maybe, which is, you know, something which is made to kind of bring new audiences to itself, but to mecha as a whole, you could say. Bravern is for, like, is Obari making something for Obari, which means for people like him who are like in their 50s or 60s.
For Obari for fans of Super Robot Wars, and
for boomers, basically. You know?
He said it. He said the B word.
And I love it. But it's not like it's. I mean, it's not like it's reviving the genre in the sense that it's for an audience which is already sold on it, you know?
Yeah, but so of course, to keep the thing alive, you need to bring new audiences. But if you don't also appeal to the audiences that already exist, then you're losing them, right?
Yes.
And the fact that you still have a show like this that is focused just on appealing to those audiences, you know, and giving them what they want, is still proof that, first of all, the audience is there, it exists. Else, so it's my point is that Cygames wouldn't spend money on such a show if there wasn't an audience for it.
Yeah,
so,
obviously.
So saying, oh, it's dead, like the genre is dead,
saying
is
this
false, because
is dumb.
Because you wouldn't have companies like a company like Cygames, and especially the fact that it's Cygames is important, because it's not like a random, like it's not a random company. It's Cygames. They have the biggest franchise, one of the biggest franchises in Japan right now. You know, like Uma Musume also is for boomers, because we saw it in the train in Tokyo. Everybody were playing Uma Musume in the train, or like 50 years old salarymen, right? It's mostly old people, but they're also those with the most money.
So they're the ones who are going to buy the Bravern figures, right? Or even like they're the ones who gonna buy the CDs and buy the Blu-rays and, you know, and support the show, go to events and stuff like that. And I suppose that Cygames probably won't leave like the series just at that, you know. They have the means to make bigger things out of it, if the anime works out. And
totally. It seems to work out quite well. I mean, the opening, for example, on YouTube has already over 1 million views, you know. Like, it's not like there's no reception
No,
to it. People are watching it.
It's just that you listen to it a million times.
I
already.
did listen to it quite too much. Yes,
But
I will
yeah,
admit
it's
it.
it's
but
so good.
it's so catchy.
It's so good.
And so I mean, we went to karaoke
Yeah.
many times, and you know that I love things like
Yeah.
openings like Godma's and
Yeah.
like Watanabe Chume
Yeah,
openings.
and this is just
and this is just like just that. It's a real Annie song.
Yeah.
Which is something that for past years has been lost, because of course I also love like stuff like Yoasobi and Ano, Ado and other artists like that, and it's super cool to have a great like pop artist or utaite turned professional for openings, but in anime, in tokusatsu, you still have a lot of jam project stuff and stuff, but on anime, you have less and less actual Ani song, and to have such an incredible Ani song, which, like said, close to it's close to the parody of an actual like mecha Ani song, but or robot Ani song. But all the chords are there, the bam 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 bam, like the lyrics also, the energy of it, and no, it's too good, and
Yeah.
I love the fact that we can get something like this in 2024.
Yeah, and it's so much fun. Like I'm going to complain as always. Like but,
You can help yourself.
Yeah.
That's why you're French, right?
Yeah, and it's like the robots are in CG and everything, but I do
Big
complain,
but.
and I am unhappy with some things, but like every time the ugly CG robot appears on screen,
It's so funny.
it's so funny that I can't watch because I'm just laughing. It's so
your
good.
eyes are closed anyway because you're dying from laughter, right?
It's so good. It's so much fun that I can forgive like not anything,
and-
but I
and
can
still-
forgive a lot of things.
And still, you still get those awesome Obari poses, right?
Yeah.
And like the opening starts with a fucking Obari punch. You have everything that makes Yusha, Yusha series robot anime, looking cool.
Yeah.
And so even for, the max, the robots are not 2D. Still, it's awesome. It's cool.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's basically rule of cool.
Yeah.
It's too cool to complain about.
Yeah. So thank you, Obari, for not saving mecha because mecha is not dead, but for saving anime as a whole and bringing some justice and bravery. We needed it.
But bless Obari.
Yes, Obari, as always.
So, well, I think that's it for this week, right?
Yeah.
We did talk quite a lot. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We're back here next week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about robots again and a lot.
Yeah, and next week it's quite a piece, right?
It's long and it's nobody will come because nobody will read it because it's like kind
It's
of
too long.
But also because it's kind of a niche subject. But it's really interesting and we'll talk about robots. You've forgotten. I tell you who it is later. I can see that you've forgotten.
Is it the woods? No, wait.
It's we'll say that, but it's robot anime. What the hell is he doing? No,
Dove.
I
Dove.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's that one. Okay,
It's that one. Yeah. So we're going to
So
talk about robot
it's not
anime
even
and everything.
It's not even the best one because there's another one
Coming in 2 weeks. But
2 weeks from now, even
Yeah,
better.
yeah,
That's
but
still.
both-
But of course, next week it's that one because we said we don't talk about Yu-Gi-Oh this week.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Next week,
we-
Yu-Gi-Oh.
We'll be talking about Yu-Gi-Oh and robots, and so you can try to speculate on what that means. But anyways,
Anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in today. Of course, as always, if you wish to support us, there will be a link to our coffee in our description. In the description, you can either make a one-time donation, but if you rather also have access to the extra episodes of the 80 Field, where we go more in depth on some of the topics of the episode, then you can support us through the membership tier, the EVA membership tier that we have started last week. We hope that you all enjoyed this episode, and we see each other next week, right?
yeah. See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.